Alright, let's see if we can start this episode right with a no ether cold start. That'd be nice. Oh, and we'll even have the glow plugs potentially work. That'd be fun. I'm waiting on the relay, by the way. I didn't hear it, but we'll just go anyway. There we are. Gave her a little bit of accelerator pedal. She's rearing to go. Can't see it, but blew some smoke. That's the first time this has ever started without ether. Okay, and now the seatbelt buzzer works. Okay, but it's done now. Let's go for a little bit of a rip. Break them brakes free. Roll on out. Well, it wouldn't be a brief jaunt in Old Mossy unless the brakes locked up before I even got 2 miles. So I already got screeching down here from this hub. So brakes are locking up. I think the calipers are just perpetually stuck. Brake pedal is hard as a rock. Doesn't really do much. I don't have the horrid whop yet. It's coming on though. I can feel it coming. Suspension is about gone. I have full oil pressure. Oh, here comes the whop. Let's see. Not quite up to temp yet. It's like 70 something out today in August. It's insane. I don't know what's going on. Alright, we don't have a flasher module, but we do have the light at the very least. Hear that brake? At least I hope it's a brake and not a bearing. I didn't hear it until it started heating up. Yeah. Still don't have the tach. I gotta find that relay for that thing, or fused relay doohickey up there, over there for the EGR behind that panel. And yeah, but at least we're staying cool. At least we have an oil pressure gauge now. I just put about another gallon and a half of fresh diesel in her just because we were getting a little low. I think she's got a very small diesel leak because I just always smell diesel around this car, but that could just be because I soaked the car in diesel at one point. But I don't know. This is not a comfortable car, and I can't roll the windows down either. Nice and humid. Oh, so much to do, so little time, so little time. Well, she seems to be sitting comfortably now at operating temp. She's climbing up a little bit now that I've stopped and idled. Oil pressure seems to be stable at temp, at idle, at 2 bar. That's pretty good. I think that's like 30 psi if I give her some RPM. Full oil pressure, comes back down. Let's see what it takes to get 3 bar. It's probably 1500. Buttery smooth, buttery smooth. Also, the shaking is the car, not me. Now, will she shut off? Will the vacuum pump work? Nice. Alright, in the interim, before I get a chance to work on brakes, I'm not going to do the Bondo work. Those are some Bondo patches to fix, over there, back of the window on both sides, as well as that little patch you can see right there behind the rear window. Because, let's be real, the paint's fucked. So, I'm not afraid to fill in some, gaping, fist-sized holes in the side of a body panel with a little bit of Bondo and then spray paint it Windows 98 computer beige. Or not. Or get the car repainted. That'll never happen. But anyway, I'd rather there not be, fist-sized holes or painter's tape inside the car. We'll do that at a later date, though. However, in the interim, I think I'm going to try and install a boost gauge. I'm interested to see if this turbo is doing anything. I have a feeling it's not, but I was able to snag this for like 25 bucks and pick up a pack of vacuum line connectors. I think none of those are the right size, but I just so happened to find one in the pile of Corvette parts that I think will work. And I was told that there is a line running pretty much at the back of the engine, I forget what it hooks up to, but it hooks up over towards the air cleaner. And I was told that's the line you need to hook up for the boost gauge on the OM617. So we're just going to thread a little bit of line through the firewall, plug that sucker in, just sort of casually throw it on the floorboard or something. Then splice in a wide connector, plug it in, and see if we're making any boost. And this is not an accurate gauge. As you can see, the zero reading is not exactly on zero when it's at zero. I hear it's like, up to like 20% off, but I just want to see if we're making any boost at all, like if we're getting like 5 pounds or something. I'd be happy with that. So yeah, I'm probably going to do that here shortly. And we'll see if this turbo's, doing something other than just like making super cool whir noises, because that's all I've heard it do so far. Yeah, who knows? Anywho, it's dark out now, and I'm poking around under here, and this is the line I'm talking about. It runs right over here, right to the back of the intake. So that's the one that would actually have boost, or that's what would actually be showing the boost that's actually going, well, into the engine, because it's in the intake. So this guy runs right here, comes back this way, snakes on up in here, and connects down in here into the back of this guy right here, which has a plug in it. And it's got another vacuum line, maybe is this a cap? It just feels like a cap. It's got a vacuum line that runs down here to the top of the injection pump, goes into this fitting right here. This looks like some kind of diaphragm. And then this line runs up into here into the bottom of this. Who's it? And yeah, I have no idea what any of this fucking vacuum shit does. It all just sort of miraculously works sometimes, mostly. So I don't touch it. And what I'm going to do is, I guess, come right in here, and I guess just pick a spot that goes right over the top of the oil filter or something that'll get in my way. Come down in here, I guess, underneath all of this hot wiring. Maybe put one right here, or maybe down in yonder, somewhere in this general area, so it just goes into this big fucking rat's nest, so I can just do one of these when I change the oil. It's probably right about here, probably. Put a T-fitting so I can just shoot that vacuum line through the firewall. Well, that's a real fancy little thing right there. I guess not through that fancy pile of tubage, or probably just drill another fucking hole in the firewall, or run it through the back of the fuse panel or something, but find some way to get it into the cab. Sure, I have a rust hole around here somewhere, so that I can have a vacuum gauge. Or I guess in the interim I could just put a T-fitting right there, and then just say, put the gauge up over, cut a little short length of line, put the gauge over here, just so I could test it, and then I could cap that off when I don't want to use the gauge. But long term, gonna have to find some sort of way to get that into the cab. Figure something out. But that'll be how I have my boost gauge. I guess, yeah. Guess let's not fuck with routing it, because I still have to pull apart the instrument panel and fix the clock and stuff. And hopefully this OVP relay I ordered is going to fix the tach. So we'll probably just test it in the cab, although I can't mash. Well, I can mash on the accelerator like this. So we'll see if it does something. Alright, well, I poked around a little bit more, and it looks like they left 2 open ports in here for, extended capabilities. And I may also see a rust hole down underneath everything. But, nah, just leave. But anyway, we're just going to jam it into that big old hole right there, poke it out firewall, and hook it on the floorboard. Oh yeah, also, listen to this. Oh yeah. That's the good stuff. Crunchy. Okay, so I bought another OVP relay. I got this used off of a guy on eBay for about 30 bucks. So we're gonna pull that passenger side panel out of the dash, stick this guy back up in there above the EGR, and hopefully the tach will work after that. And if not, I also bought another one for 10 bucks. It was like $5 and $5 shipping. And we're gonna huck that one in there, or if this one doesn't work, we're gonna take the other one when it arrives, try that, and if that one doesn't work, we're gonna pull that one apart and re-tin all the solder joints, and if that doesn't work, we're gonna pull this one apart, re-tin all the solder joints, and if that doesn't work, we're gonna pull that one apart and re-tin all the solder joints until we have one that fucking works. So yeah, let's get to that, because this controls the tach. It also controls the glow plugs. It does a whole bunch of stuff. Well, it doesn't do that. It's just it's a relay that protects stuff from getting shorted out, and sometimes it just fucking breaks and the fuse doesn't blow, and everything just messes up in the car. So I'm hoping this is the root cause of a lot of the weird gremlins that are going on with this thing. All right, old one is out, and we have a slight problem. Here's the old one. It's 5-pin. Here's the new one. It's 6-pin. Thankfully, I already read on a forum somewhere, and this extra pin down here is actually redundant. So I can take a pair of needle nose pliers and pull this 6-pin out. You see they're both 87. Well, that's 87 right there. That's 87, and that's 87. You look at the wiring diagram, and they're exactly the same. So this 87 down here is actually redundant, and since I physically cannot plug this in because my doohickey up here, my plug only has, I might actually be able to get that out to show you. I'll try that off screen, but that only has 5 holes in it, so I physically can't put that one in there. But I can take this pin off and then shove it in there, because my car can't take a 6-pin, so no reason for me to leave that pin on there. So. Alright, took some vice grips and a little bit of force, but she popped right on out. So you can see it's not really connected to anything, it's just sort of press fit. I can't get this plug out, it just doesn't want to go. So we'll just hook it on up in there, and hopefully I can put it in right. Alright, there she is. New OVP relay is in. Oh, Lord, camera. So, I guess let's see if the car fires up, and hopefully the tach works. And I'm also going to check the alternator while I'm out here. Probably shouldn't leave this here, because I'm not 100% certain the alternator works, but I'm also pretty sure it does. So I'm just going to check, make sure it's, you know, putting out 13 something volts to the battery, and if it's not, do something about it. I may actually have to use this cup holder for a cup. Well, a beer bottle. Alright, will she start without ether again? We shall see. See if the glow plugs work. Let's wait on that relay. You know the drill. Hey, hush, quiet. Beer break. Well, I didn't hear the glow plug relay click. Oh, that might have been it. Let's give it a go. Oh. I got a little bit scared there. I heard it cheech. Come on, girl. There we are. Oh, tach works! Heck yeah, success. Got oil pressure. It says tank's empty. That's correct. Tach is working. That's only 3,000. That does not sound like it. You can hear that turbo spooling up. Oh yeah. Oh wait, I gotta check the alternator now. Let me, ow! Smack my head on this glass and try not to dent the truck up any more than it already is. Heck yeah, we're making progress. Alright, stand by till I get this hood open. Alright, we're set to 20 volt DC. Got the positive jammed in there. Don't look too closely at the wiggling air cleaner. And let's see if we're getting like 13.5. Nah, 12.4. Well, it seems to be going up somewhat. I'm not certain we're getting an alternator spinning. Well, it's going up. Let me reposition these and see if I can get a better contact. Yeah, it's going up. We're charging, but it seems to be a little weak. You know, I really got to run this car for a hot minute. Yeah, but I think the alternator's doing something, so better than nothing. Well, we got a tach now. We got a cooling system that works. We got an alternator that charges. We got brakes, sort of. We got brakes that brake but don't unbrake because they're broke. We even have wipers. I think we're getting pretty close there. Once I get these brakes sorted out, I think she's roadworthy. Other than the flasher module, I tried to order one of those, and they were out of stock at Pelican Parts. So, don't know if I'm ever going to get one. I'm probably going to take that apart and try and re-tin it. So I'm going to put this dash back together, finish my beer. Yep, tach's still going. Nice. Alright, well I dropped the dash and I'm in here trying to route a line for the vacuum/boost gauge, and I got that done. I got the line routed through the firewall. But we have some more mouse damage up in here. Nothing crazy, but whatever that wire is for, whichever this, you know, brown wire in this big mess, about 43 brown wires is for, it's halfway chewed through. We'll ignore it. And I found 2 vacuum lines up in here. I don't know if you can see them at all, but there's about a 1/4 inch and a 1/8 inch-ish. Let me see if I can wriggle up in here, but, well, I can't really show it, but there's 2, well, there's one right there, this guy, and there's another larger one in here, this one. You're not gonna be able to see that, sort of, that guy, and they're just not connected to anything, and I don't know what the hell they're for. Clearly they're not doing anything crazy important, but yeah, they're just not connected at all. And I've been wriggling around in here for the last 5 minutes, and I can't find anything that they were supposed to be connected to. There's no other end to it, and they're clean cut, so it's a mystery. Alright, so here's as far as I was able to get with the boost gauge today. Got to plumb through the dash. I got it stuck to the dash just up here in the most tacky, fucking shittiest way possible with some double back tape, so that when I decide to move it at a later date, I can easily. So that's just there as a temporary, but it's going to be permanent because I'm never going to fuck with it again, fix. And then down here, I cannot get it hooked up to the intake line. I don't know what size this tubing is that comes with this Bosch gauge is, but it's like 16th inch or something like that. I don't have any fittings that'll fit it. I don't know what size line this is. Well, it's obviously metric. This is a 5/32, and that was all I could do to get it to cram on there. I had 1/8 one, and it fit on there, but it fit on there just a little too well. It was just too well enough that I figured it'd probably leak under pressure. So I tried a 5/32, and it took a lot of effort, and I got it, you know, 2 barbs on, and it's well and truly tight, so I'm gonna call that good. But this is the only thing I can get hooked up to this hard line for the gauge. Comes with a ferrule and this sort of clamp down nut, flared flange fitting, and that's all I can do. So now I need to find a barbed fitting that'll fit onto one of these 2 over here. I don't know what sizes these are. I'll have to look at the instruction manual to see what those sizes are. But I need to find an adapter. I need to find like a female to male barb adapter, like the thing that's on the back of that gauge over there. Second one of those, so that I can then put a little short piece of 5/32 or whatever millimeter tubing on the back of this, and then just connect this like that, and then, or I guess like that, so that I have my line out of the way for the oil filter for the most part. I had a lot more extra line, and then I used it all. So hopefully what I'll do is I'll have enough that I can route this over here, and then have the line just sort of swoop on over this way, and just plumb on into that. But we're gonna have to leave all of this lying around for now until I can get that piece of line and the adapter. So back to Amazon. Alright, so I finally got some parts in. So I bought some 4mm silicone airline, a 1/8 to 1/4 inch barb fitting, and this was a 4mm airline kit. It has a bunch of cool stuff in there. If I was plumbing 4mm, it'd be awesome, but I really wasn't. I just needed a little spur here. And in my drunken angry stupor, I forgot to buy female hose ends, but thankfully we actually had a couple of 1/4 inch male-to-male couplers, so that all worked out. I got that all Teflon taped, and you see how it's all twisted? That's because I haven't torqued it down yet, because I twisted the shit out of everything before I screwed it in, so that I didn't have it twisted the opposite direction and couldn't do anything about it. So I'm gonna go get the wrenches, torque all that down, and I did have to flare this 4mm to get on this 5/32 fitting. I just went and found a proper center punch, or whatever that you call those things that are like conical, and you jam it in there to line up two holes. Anyway, took one of those, heated it up, just pushed it down on there, and this silicone stretched out way better. However, these were kind of a hard fit, and I only have it on 2 barbs, just barely on either side, but hopefully that should be fine. And if not, I'll cry. And yeah, I'm gonna go torque all that down, and after I go eat and have a couple beers, we'll come out here, fire it up, and see if we're making boost. Alright, well that's all torqued, plumb tucked, and zip tied out of the way up in here, where it can cover up this unsightly rust hole in the middle of the firewall that we just won't pay attention to. Alright, there's our relay. Let's see if we get some boost. That's the best it's ever started. Alright, we're pulling a smidge of vacuum. Also, I'm sure that that big old 1/4 inch just void I have in there is probably gonna do wonders to mess with this reading. But let's see if she does something when I give her some RPM. Oh, we have nothing, boys. Nothing. Oh man, I think my e-brake's on. Try that one more time. Yeah, we're maybe getting 1 or 2 PSI of boost. Let's get the tach in frame too. Okay, so we're getting 2 RPM of boost, or 2 PSI of boost at 3,000 RPM. We seem to have a rev limiter in park there too. So control, Peter may be doing something, so we'll go and drive and tool around a little bit and see if we can make that do anything else. No idea if I'm gonna be able to get enough RPM for the boost to do anything, but we can give it a shot. And like I was saying, that big old chunk of 1/4 inch coupler I have in there, probably going to dampen any signal I get and delay it a whole bunch. That's not ideal, but that's the hand you're dealt, or at least the hand you claim that you're dealt when you're too lazy to, solve it correctly. I'm gonna put this locker in first and see how high I can get the RPM going. Oh wow, we may actually be making 4 or 5 PSI. Let me try this again. Get on the straightaway. Alright, let's do some engine braking and try not to blow a head gasket, but that was some boost there. I'm gonna go spin back around, park her before my brakes lock up, and I think we have a turbo. Alright, so this afternoon we're gonna try and repair the flasher module. So I bought one of these online from Pelican Parts, and then they canceled my order and told me they didn't have any in stock. So then I hunted and hunted and hunted, and I found one on eBay for what seemed like a steal at like 35 bucks. Bought it, and it just showed up today, and it's not even fucking close to being the right relay. So that's getting returned, and I think these are also unobtainium unless you want to spend 70 bucks on a used one. So we're going to try and pop this case open and see if this thing is just like corroded together or something, and if it just needs to be cleaned on a little bit, or if I'm going to break it and I'll have to hotwire everything. I don't know. We shall see. Alright, well that guy came apart without any fight. And here's our little flappy do down here, and as you can see, it is doing the flappy. So it's not a mechanical thing. I don't think it's a contact. Well, if it was a contact thing, the flashers just wouldn't come on. But we do have that kind of nast going on in there. So probably something to do with that. But otherwise, it all looks pretty fine. I'm going to inspect that a little bit. Just see if I can try and figure out where everything is going awry. But yeah, looks like it's a short somewhere in this system and not a mechanical failure. So yeah, I'm going to poke around on this board and see if I can figure out where it's shorting, or if, like, say that is a potential short, or maybe something up in there and you know, needs a little cleaning on or something. Okay, well, I delicately cleaned all the mung off of it in case it was somehow conductive mung. That didn't do anything. And then I hooked up the 12 volt and wire leads, and I was trying to see if I could get the solenoid to cycle, but I just could not get it to do anything. So I think this chip or something, or one of these things in here, I'm not an electrician or an electrical engineer. I got very minimal knowledge, but all I know is that I need to tap either side of the windings on this solenoid to, you know, run power through it to get it to do something. And it seems that this is in a, you know, making contact by default state, and just trying to directly bridge those gaps. I believe it is this one and this one. I couldn't get it to cycle at all. It just sits there. Nothing I can see on the outside, or maybe one of the windings broke in the solenoid, because trying to short the solenoid, or trying to, you know, make contact either end of the solenoid doesn't do anything. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to buy another one of these. Great. Or just cycle the multifunction switch really fast. Either or, something. We'll figure it out. Alright, today is brake day, hopefully. So, just broker free. 3 of the brake calipers were seized onto the rotors again. So that's the first time it's done that since I drove it out of its grave. But anyway, we're gonna put her up on jack stands, hopefully, and hopefully not put a jack stand through the frame somewhere. And then see about doing something to these brakes. I'm gonna do the front ones first, because I feel like they're probably, well, they're the most important that I get done. Like, that one back there isn't really that bad. That one's kind of bad. These two are horrible. So I'm gonna beat on the front ones first, also just because I have more room and I can turn the wheel and all that. So that's the plan. Had to jump start her, so not sure if I can drive her back off of this, because the battery's probably dead, because I think the alternator's not great. But anyway, we're going to try and do the belts too, so that we can get the alternator working more efficiently. Alright, got her up on stands, didn't fight too terribly much, and let me show you what I'm fighting. So here's rear driver's side. You know, brake is definitely dragging. Nothing too horrible. Rear passenger, about the same, maybe even a little freer, but definitely not rolling on its own. Front passenger, I can't do that one-handed. That's about all I can do with my 180 pounds of ass. Driver's side front, even worse. So that's why I'm doing the brakes. So anyway, we're gonna pull these wheels off and start spraying some stuff with the goo and hope for the best. Alright, so my plan is just to marinate everything in liquid wrench and hope it all comes apart, and then I'll figure out, you know, getting it back together after the fact. But before I get too much further into it, I'm going to pull the bearing caps off of the front hubs just to see what the condition of the grease is. And I'm going to repack the front bearings. I bought some grease for that and all that. But I just want to make sure they look good, because if they look terrible, I'm going to have to order some new bearings. And I think I can do the front bearings, no problem, but I think the rear bearings require like hydraulic press and all that other shit, and I'm not going to fuck with that. I'll just run it on bad bearings if that's the case. But I will put some fresh grease in it at the very least. Thankfully, you don't have to change the front bearing in order to do the front rotor. You just take this front plate off of the rotor, and that houses the bearing the inner race for the front bearing. So you just pop that off. Pop this whole thing off. Well, you have to take this nut off and all that other jazz. But you can pop that off, take these nuts off, and that'll take your rotor off, and you put the new one on, put it all back together, and stick that back on. And when I do that, I'll clean and re-grease the outer bearings. But yeah, I'm just mostly hoping that these calipers are fine, and that it's just a matter of these rubber hoses being plugged, or the fact that there is like no brake pad left. One of the two. So I'm gonna get to it, hope for the best. Well, took the grease cap off, and this bearing at least looks pretty good. Someone actually greased that really recently, because that smells like a fresh, you know, proper bearing grease. So that's a good sign. All right, well, that bearing looks pretty much the same except with less grease. So stick that back on. I managed to get both soft lines free. I haven't taken them off yet just because it's going to dump brake fluid everywhere. Because I think first what I want to do is try and get all this shit out. And I also think I bought all of the wrong brake hardware, because I think I have Bendix stuff on the back, and it looks like I have ATE on the front. So I made the assumption that I had Bendix on everything, because I had this going on the back, but I didn't have photos of the front, and I was too lazy to come out here. So I think all of my front brake hardware is wrong, but I'm pretty confident I have all the correct stuff for the rear, which is, you know, fine and dandy, except that the rears actually rotate, and they actually have some pad left. So that might suck, so I think we're going to load up the parts can again. But I'm still going to pull everything apart and put it back together, just to see how bad everything is, and to know if I need anything else. Alright, there's one done. It actually didn't fight that bad, except for the fact that I had to put an ungodly amount of force on the calipers to get them to seat home. And then I just barely, like by a micron, had enough room to get both brake pads in. I had to beat this one in with a hammer, so either these pads are too big or my caliper's a bit seized. But it's flush on both sides. Now we're back to not being able to spin the hub, but I know that's not the bearings, that's just how tight these pads are. So I'm hoping the caliper's fine and it's not actually what's sticking, and that it was just the soft line, because I did replace that, and this one has no flow through it. I can blow on it, and it takes a whole lot of effort just to get, you know, a little dribble to come out. So there's just a pinhole coming through it, so I'm pretty confident that was the real issue. Man, asbestos don't taste good. So anyway, I'm gonna go over to the other side and Lord, see if I can make the same thing happen over there. Oh, steering lock must have engaged. Alright, this guy fought a little bit more, so I broke out a second C-clamp and it went just fine. And hopefully we'll be able to get the pads in there without much of a fight, but I have a feeling they're going to fight the ever-living fuck out of me. So I'm just going to be extra certain I get this thing as flush as possible. And then we'll hammer them in. Bearings seem fine on this side too. I'm going to reuse these old rotors because they're in remarkably good shape, considering that this one was literally just touching the metal. Like there's just half a cunt hair worth of pad left on there. And oh, the shim came off. So that one was done. It's a good thing we're doing this. It was needed. But the bearings seem fine, and the rotors, despite how these pads look, are. This one's got a bit of a groove in it. The back is pretty fucking good. The other side's pretty damn great too. I ran stuff on the Jeep that was way worse than that. I don't know what rotors I bought for that thing originally. I think they were Ray Bestos or something, but they just shit the bed immediately. But anyway, I digress. We're going with Centric on everything for no reason other than they were the only company on Rock Auto that sold everything I needed. So I was able to save like 30 bucks on shipping just buying everything Centric. So that's why we went with them, for no other reason. Also because they seem to be a decent brand. So yeah. I'm going to finish cranking on this bad boy and huck it back on, and hopefully we'll have front pads. Alright, two things. One, we're definitely going to need new calipers, at least this one. These rubber seals in here are just gone. The pistons seem to be really stuck. There's these metal sort of covers here on this seal that are pretty much gone, and this one ripped in half when I tried to drive this pad in here. And so what I had to do was sit this one in here with that thing pressed down because I couldn't drive it in anymore, and then jam and hammer this on here so I could then get these bolts lined up, and then I just physically cannot get this one in there, and I've already driven this plate off the back of this thing multiple times, and it's like so very close. It's like a 32nd, not even that, a 64th of an inch, and I just can't do it. So we're going to take this pad from that side over here that actually still has, you know, it's not to the wear hole yet, so we'll just call that good, and we'll throw that one in here, tighten all this down, throw all the hardware on there, and just call it good, because we're gonna have to redo these calipers at some point. So we're just going to leave it as is, and we'll buy those and throw those on at a later date, and I'll get all this on here and bleed the fronts. Unintended side effect of, you know, compressing these pistons, I blew brake fluid out the master because I had to push, because these were all the way in and the brake master was all the way up. So that was what all the, you know, why I was having such a problem, you know, compressing everything. It was because I was pushing fluid literally out from underneath the cap of the master, trying to compress these. So the caliper pistons themselves may actually be fine. I don't know, we shall see, but I know that side over there is dragging because I had to hammer a pad in. This one will be fine, and hopefully the backs won't be. So I'll tell you right now, these Centric ceramic pads, they come fat. They thick. These are some thick pads. Or these OEM rotors are just extra wide or something. I don't know. Alright, well, we've used the sucky boy, and we bled both the fronts. So hopefully we should have front brakes now. I'm going to come back and do this one again. I'm going to top off the master too after it closes off this bleeder. And hopefully the master should build pressure, or it won't. And if it doesn't, we know we have air in the lines. But that could be, you know, in the rears. That could explain why they're, you know, not locking up. Is maybe they just never worked to begin with. I don't know, but we'll definitely still be boiling brakes here on the front. Oh yeah, she got the good suck. Alright, mid-rear brake update. I got a beer. Rear is definitely not fighting me, especially since I have the reservoir open. Those compress pretty well. One of these fell off. We'll ignore it. These pads still have plenty of life left in them, but they delaminated from the backs when I pulled them out. They've got a bit of grooving in them. This guy doesn't really have grooves, but it does have roughness. I was going to replace these just because they're simpler to do, but they sent me the wrong rotors. These don't have the peg. They just have the holes in them. So that's kind of annoying. I think this is like a universal type, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to throw these back on here. They're the rears anyway. I also bought parking brake shoes, but these still have like half of their life left on them for as little as I'm going to use them. I've just gone ahead and adjusted the star adjuster to take up that slack, and they're at the point now where they just kiss the rotor as I put it on, so that'll be good. So I'm going to throw all this back together. I actually have new hardware for this one because I ordered the correct ones, and new brake pads, and hopefully these won't be too extra thick. I don't think so. I'll huck those in there, do my soft line, and move on to the second one, bleed them, and hopefully we can go take it for a test drive. Alright, that's one rear replaced and bled. New hardware, all that jazz. Didn't fight me too much. Just a moderate amount. Okay, so I noticed something interesting. I'm doing the other caliper over here, and I haven't replaced the soft line yet, but I tried compressing the piston, And watch what happens when I compress one piston. It'll be hard for me to do one-handed, but this is the easiest caliper out of all of them so far to compress. And as I compress one piston, the other one extends, which to me is a strong indicator that there is a restriction in the line that is preventing that fluid from going back to the reservoir in the master, i.e. self-line has collapsed. So, found that interesting. So none of the other ones did that, but this is also the one that didn't actually ever overheat. So I wonder if it just never got brake pressure. So yeah, I'm gonna replace that soft line and then I'm going to do that. All right, last brake is done. That soft line was definitely plugged, which is kind of strange because this was the only one that overheated. I guess it's so plugged that no fluid was getting through it at all. And not enough fluid was getting to it to actually squish it. So I think it's high time I throw this tire on, take her off the jack stands, hope I have just enough battery that I can, deluge it in the good stuff, get her to touch off, and go spin her up to the end of the road before I run out of daylight. So I'm gonna shut the fuck up and do that. Well, I had to jump the old girl with the old Jeep battery, but she roared to life. But alternator, she's a bit weak. We need to do the belts. Might do that tomorrow. I don't know, but it's 8 something now, so I guess let's hop in her, go take her for a rip. And thankfully she's not gas, so I don't have to worry about the light gets dim when I press on the brakes. That's weird. But anyway, she's not gas, so I don't have to worry about the battery going dead. Let me just not. Ooh, we're rolling. We're actually rolling. She didn't squeak, she didn't scurch. We may have done it. Let's go hop on the highway and hope for the best. And by that I mean just go drive up to the road and do the exact same loop we've done this entire time. Stand by. Well, I'm on my way back. She's a million times better. It's nowhere near perfect, but the brakes are not locking up. They're still terrible, but at the very least they let up. Like, I can brake and then go right back to accelerating, and the brakes don't, lock up. I know y'all can't see anything right now. Neither can I. If I turn the headlights on, it like immediately starts dimming, and then the radio starts buzzing. And if I turn the turn signal on, okay, well, I've run it long enough now that it's kind of working, but I'm really low on battery, so I'm just gonna, drive right at peak deer into this herd of deer up here with no lights and just pray for the best. But the brakes are not locking up anymore. They're still dragging, but that's also because they were dragging when I put them in. I'm sure those will self-clearance eventually. Oh, she's really shaking right now. Okay, I'm just in the washboard section of the driveway. And yeah, it's dark as fuck. I can't see anything. There's fireflies all over the place. It's magical. And yeah, I'm gonna go home and drink some more beer and go to bed, and maybe we'll mess with that alternator belt in the morning, because it is clearly not working. It is not putting out enough of the juice. And yeah, but we've made significant progress. This is theoretically drivable if it weren't for the, battery. So yeah, that's a win. We just keep winning, boys. All right, well, I think she's theoretically drivable now. Let me give her the old feel test. My hand is sitting there. It's warm. It's warmer than it should be for what we just did, but it ain't hot. Let's check this one. Oh, this one ain't even hot. Well, that did it. Well, this one. Yeah, that one's cold. I already checked that one over there. That one's cold. So we got brakes. They're shit. They're garbage brakes, but they're brakes. I think as they self-clearance and clean up them rotors, I think they'll come around. I think they'll come around pretty good. But the bearings are definitely not an issue. Got plenty of pad life mostly. Yeah. Oh yeah, that was the one that has the half a pad on it. So that one's got enough slop. That one has the 2 new pads in it, so it's real tight. That's why that one's warm. I mean, this one's only like 150. Yeah, like that's like perfect hand washing temperature. Maybe 160, 170, something like that. Well, no, that's kind of hot. It's 150. It's cooler than what the radiator runs at, so that's nice. Got fucking raccoons over here. Do you mind? I'm filming right now. Alright, next morning, or afternoon, but we'll ignore that. Went to start the Mercedes this morning and got nothing. Not even a click, nothing. Battery totally dead. So I thought, oh great, now we've developed a parasitic draw. Went over here, looked at the battery, and the negative terminal was completely off. So that explains why my headlights, stopped working on the way back. Because I was running off of nothing but the alternator, which is barely running. So, yeah, maybe we'll have just enough juice in there to get her to crank and drive her back over to the slab. But probably not, but that's interesting. So I've tightened that down. I had it loose just because I kept killing the battery and had to pull it out and recharge it and all that. But it's nice and cranked now, so we'll forget about that. Well, we got nothing. So we're gonna have to jump her again. But interesting to note, the low battery light seems to be working. So it is in fact a low battery. All right, Jeep battery's hooked up. Whiff of the good stuff. And if we're lucky, we'll get a relay click right about now. Perfect. Hop on in here, give her a crank, and hope the Jeep battery's not dead too. Yep, Jeep battery's dead too. Or this one is super dead. So, guess we're gonna jump it with the truck. Okay, on second thought, I'm just gonna boil the battery while I go run errands because I need to go to dump day and dump closes at 6. So if I start fucking with this, I ain't gonna be done till like 9. So might as well go run to the dump now so I don't lose my motivation. So just disconnected the battery again after I just tightened it down. And we'll charge her up on 10 amp, come back, flip her to 50 for a couple minutes, and then see if she fires up. And if not, fire up with the truck. Alright, let's try this again. It's been an hour. She's on boil battery mode. This is a 30 amp breaker on the wall. Gave her a squirt of the good stuff. We'll see if she cranks now. There was the click. Probably won't. Oh yeah, just enough. Alright, I would like to drive around the block just to confirm that the brakes are working, but I'm going to be working on the engine, so I don't want this thing screaming hot. So that's as much as I'm going to run it. And today we're going to try and replace all these belts. Should, hopefully, knock on wood, be fairly simple. And now that I've said that, the alternator is going to not move at all. So let's dig on into it. Alright, so this is what we're doing today. So replacing all the belts except for the AC compressor, which I think is this belt. We're not doing that one just because it's not actually hooked up and apparently doesn't work. And the evaporator is has a hole like that big in the bottom of it, so no reason to hook that up. So I think I'm just going to pull the belt off the compressor because it's already slack on there anyway. Pulley's probably burned up too. So we're really just doing the water pump / alternator belts and the power steering belt, and I think these are the right ones anyway. They're all different sizes. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to take the fan out. I'm going to have to disconnect the upper rad hose, I believe, so I can take the fan and the fan shroud out. So I'm going to spill coolant everywhere. That's great. Let's see. Then I have to slack the power steering doohickey pump so I can pop this belt off, and this belt is actually still tight. However, the belt down here on the water pump and the alternator, I'm pretty sure I can pull that off, and that's the crux of our problem. But in order to do that, I got to get this belt off, I got to get that belt off, and I have to take that the pulley off of the water pump. Honestly, I may just be able to take the fan off of the water pump and just stuff it in there and call it a day. I think I'm going to try to do that because I don't want to have to drain the radiator. And I'm also going to need to take the air cleaner out to be able to access the alternator to adjust all the bolts. So I'm going to do that real quick. And while I have the air cleaner out, I'm going to attempt to replace that O-ring underneath it that was broken with just one of these random O-rings in here that are SAE sizes, so probably none of them will fit. But I'll find the closest one and stick that in there because it's probably better than having a broken one. And yeah, and then if all that works out and I have some time, I'm also going to attempt to change the power steering fluid and put a new filter in it. I'm not going to change all the fluid. I'm just going to suck out everything I can and pour some fresh stuff in and call that good now, because it seems to be working just fine as is. So without any further ado, I'm gonna shut up and get to it, and we'll report back when I find something horribly wrong and broken, which shouldn't take too long at all to do. Alright, so that guy came off without too much fight, and here is the old O-ring, and I believe this one is good enough. That is an A110. So that fit on there, that looks alright, and we'll throw it back on there with that and hope for the best. Don't know if nitrile survives in diesel engine oil conditions, but it's gonna have to. So I just went in here with the PB blaster, and regrettably we're almost out. I'm more a liquid wrench guy anyway, so. But I do love their can. Their cans are 1,000 times better. Liquid wrench ones are really cheap, but also liquid wrench is really cheap, and it also works probably the best out of anything other than Deep Creep. But anywho, got everything marinated. This is what I'm really scared of, is the fact that this nut here is at a like 20-degree angle, and that this is all bent up, and that this may have fought someone before, so I don't know if that's going to come off. We may just have to cut it. I'm not certain where all of the bolts are. These two up here are definitely some, and this appears to be one as well. But I think there's a third down in there somewhere, and I think the head is on the back somewhere down in there, and I'm not quite sure where. But we'll worry about that later. I am going to take the bend the upper rad hose out of the way, take the fan shroud and the fan off, just for my own sanity. So we're going to drain the radiator part way, just take a gallon out and pour it back in there with all of this delicious goop still in it, and hope for the best. Alright, so fan's off, all the belts are off, and power steering pump didn't fight me at all. You know, there's actually there's 3 mounting bolts and a tensioner. So you've got this bolt down here, this bolt up here, this one over yonder, and then the tensioner is right here, buried in between everything, that you can't really reach it with a socket that well, but you can get it out with a wrench. And they're all 13mm, and I don't have a 13mm wrench. Well, I do, it's somewhere, I ain't looking for it. And the rear of all of those, because none of them are captive, that's the top one. The bottom one is down here in this crevasse, and the other one is down here. And once you release the tensioner, you can just sort of do all this shit with it. Now, Lord, now I gotta readjust all that. But anyway, I digress. You can do whatever you want. That was actually pretty low down on there. And the power steering belt doesn't look that horrible. I'm definitely gonna save on that, but I'll throw a new one on there. The alternator and the water pump ones, I just took that one's real easy. Just take the pulley off and all the belts come off, and then you can just put the pulley right back on. But I'm gonna need to tension everything, so I still gotta work on those. I'm putting it off, and the compressor belt was just tight enough that it wasn't gonna come off, but I was able to worm my way around there with a screwdriver and pop it off with the crank. And we'll just leave that one off unless it starts making a horrid squealing noise. Then we'll put it back on. But I'm not fucking with any of that down there. So yeah, and that one was in pretty bad shape. You know, fairly cracked, not that good. Alternator belts, definitely the worst. But we're still going to save all of them, just in case for emergency. So I'm going to start working on those, and hope I can get that alternator loose. Alright, so as you can see, the alternator didn't put up any fight at all, and it just went on perfectly fine, with absolutely no hang-ups or issues. And by that I mean, it fought the fuck out of me. So, as anticipated, snap that fucker off. I just made the executive decision. I started trying to turn it, and I was watching the threaded rod turn like a full 90 degrees as I twisted it back either direction. So I just said fuck it and just snapped it off. We ain't recovering that. So we don't have an easy tensioner on there, i.e. why there's a crowbar. Learned how to take one of these off. You have to loosen this bottom bolt down here that you can't see, which has a long ass bolt that threads into this little nipple down here, which is an aluminum housing, and that has some elastic stretch to it, and that's the pivot point. So you just you loosen that up probably about 10 turns, well, probably 4 full turns, and which required a breaker bar, hammering, lots of liquid wrench, and a mallet, or a cheater bar. Finally got that loose, and then once I did that, this one up here didn't really fight me at all. So this little threaded tensioner adjuster thingy, that is on this bolt right here, and that one didn't fight at all. I just loosened that one up, gave me plenty of slack. And I thought this other one back here was just holding the bracket on, and it didn't have anything to do with the tension, but it does. This whole bracket pivots up and down, so you have to loosen the back of it, because the front of it, you see right there those clean marks? It looks like it's a nut. It's not a nut. It's just hex that's welded onto the front of the bracket. So you have to loosen the bolt on the back, not the nut on the front, because the nut is welded to the bracket. So after I got that off, then all it took was a little bit of crowbar action to pull it all the way in, get my pulley centered, and I mean, it was tight getting it on there with the alternator all the way in. So that definitely tells me that those belts were shit, and I've probably got it, kind of close to where it was before. Probably another 1/4 inch back. So anyway, once you get all that loosened up, since you snap this guy off, you just shove a crowbar in there in between the side of the engine block and the alternator. Just give it a push. Doesn't take much. Get it as far out as it'll go. Tighten this one down here. That's enough to hold it in place. Then tighten the absolute fuck at everything else. I put it all at about 70 foot-pounds because I don't have the little tensioner, because this actually prevents it from going out or in. But we don't have that anymore, and I'm sure this will walk out. This will spin around and get in the belt and blow that up or something. But we'll just do the right thing and ignore it. I might come in here with a zip tie and just zip tie it to the bracket just so it doesn't wander anywhere, but I'm sure that'll fail and also go into the belt. So we'll ignore it. And yeah, got that on. So now I'm just going to throw the power steering belt on. And hope for the best. I may throw... I kind of want to throw the AC compressor belt back on, just so I don't have to do it again if I need to. I could just adjust it if I have to, but I have a feeling that's what was causing that squealing I had before. But also simultaneously, I know that on some engines, if you have lopsided torque on the pulleys, you get a lot of squealing and a lot of weird shit going on. I think this one's probably fine because I've got this power steering pump and this over here. Plus this has been disconnected for forever, so screw it. I'm going to stop talking out loud. I'm just going to throw that power steering belt back on. Then I'll siphon out all the power steering fluid, put in a new filter, pour in new fluid, throw all the other junk back in, put the coolant back in the radiator, and hopefully, just hopefully, we'll be able to take her for a test ride up the road. Alright, power steering belt is back on and tensioned. That's what my tension looks like. Probably a little tight, but what I read says you want about 1/2 inch of deflection on the power steering belt, and that's about what that is, maybe 3/8. And you want about 1/4 inch on the alternator water pump, and I'm definitely there. So this one might burn up a little bit, but it'll self-clearance. I won't worry about that too much. Now I just have to hope that I can take these back out, and ooh, that one's a little tight, and get the fan back on without that going flying off. So wish me luck. Okie dokie, that's all back together. Put some goo in it, and we're looking good. So as long as having that AC compressor belt off doesn't fuck with anything, I think we should be good. Otherwise, we're going all the way back in there to at least taking the power steering pump off of tension in order to replace that. I may be able to do that without taking the fan off, probably actually, but anyway, I digress. We're going to ignore it for now, but I am going to attempt to change the filter here in the power steering reservoir. So this guy should not be too hard, hopefully. It should just be this nut, and that should hopefully take off the let me take the filter out. And we're just going to fill this bad boy up with cheapo transmission fluid. And really this probably isn't necessary, but I'm just going to do it because I already bought a filter and I have some transmission fluid. And hopefully I don't use too much, or I don't use up all the transmission fluid and then don't have enough. So I'm going to try and save on that. Alright, so I used the Sucky Boy 9000 to get most of the fluid out, and it is a man filter that was in there, so probably OEM. I'm going with the Hungst filter because it was like $3. Looks identical, so that's a good sign. And I'm going to suck out the rest of this fluid. It seems pretty burnt for transmission fluid to me, so probably good that I'm changing it. And the filter looks pretty dirty, but that's probably just from being in there for 35 years. So we'll swap on that and hope it doesn't cause any problems. Alright, that's been done. Took about half a liter of transmission fluid. Ideally, if you were doing this and wanted to do a complete power steering fluid flush, what you would do is fill all of this up in there, then run the car, turn the wheel all the way to one side, all the way to the other, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Do that, half dozen times. Shut the car off, suck all the fluid back out, and repeat that process until you're happy. Me, I don't really give a shit, so we're just gonna change, everything up here that's not down there in the whole steering rack and all that, and hopefully it should be good, and it won't cause any problems. Or it will, and we'll just ignore them. Alright, how much you want to bet that this old whore has just enough juice that she can turn over and get one chooch out of her, touch off, and go down the road? I bet $5 to an undisclosed individual that is not you that it doesn't, and it just fucking goes also, I turned the power steering pump, and we are right at top dead center somewhere, or just before top dead center, because we got a fuck ton of compression. So probably not gonna work. Probably gonna jump her. All right, well, she just popped right off. She had plenty of juice, so that's a good sign. Power steering is still working, so didn't break that. So I think this is going to be her inaugural test ride. Fast forward to me not being on this fucking washboard sand driveway of mine. All right, here we go. There goes her grave over there. Let's give her a rip. And hopefully don't hit these turkeys. Ooh, man. She's got some understeer. That's for certain. Can I throw a rod? I think we got fourth gear now. Going to crisp 50. She's floating, definitely need shocks. Also, like half the ball joints on this thing the boots are gone, so that's a good sign. We'll drive her around, get her up temp, but I think she's theoretically roadworthy. So I think it's time to get title, get registration, get an insurance, and put this fucker on the road. Gonna need to do some engine stuff, replace the glow plugs, set the valve timing, all that jazz. But I think we have a car. All right, let's give her a rip. Got some of that boost. Ooh, transmission is sluggish. Seems to be a lot of load on the engine. Ooh, a lot of front end wobble there. Yep, transmission just ain't shifting. Probably getting a lot of heat on that one brake. Yeah, we're wobbling now. But we're moving. Alright, let's calm her down. Oh yeah, we're jiggling. The alignment isn't too horrible, actually. I think she needs some timing. We're at operating temp, not overheating yet. All right, so I think that's the end of this episode. Old Mossy is technically roadworthy. I mean, the flasher doesn't work, and I can hear that brake rotor scraping again, but that'll clearance. The low battery light's off, so I guess the alternator's working. Speedometer's clacking. Glow plugs are operating minimally. She needs a lot of needs a timing adjustment. Blowing oil seems to have some kind of amount of blow by, but she's staying cool. She's staying straight. Tires are still on the thing. I think we're good. If you like what I'm doing here, go down there, like the video, comment, tell me what you want to see me do on this car next, other than the obvious stuff. It needs an interior and all that jazz. And see the rest of the series and see me finally put old Mossy back to 10% of her former glory, ain't going all the way, go down there, smash that subscribe button, and until next time, Tom out.